there was before some other ones. How is the distribution in these countries from the year 2000? And I just want to reflect here on this, let's say this light gray, or how to call this color. It's Serbia. That immediately after the war, inside, where there were high financial supports, it's declined. But now people have seen that again they must invest more. Just for Macedonia, this funding as a candidate country, just in the regional development, it increased from 7.4 million to 40. For Croatia, from 45 to 59. From Turkey, forget it, from 167 to 350. So we have to recognize Turkey is a question for the EU. We are not really present, maybe Schnabel is already present, we just built one power plant there, but it's not the way. Yes. There's a multi-annual plan which also says that within the year 2006 to 2010, in the total core transport debt of 1.9 billion should be invested. Again, you see here in the countries, again, Serbia, followed by Bosnia and Macedonia, will get most of the money, even if they are not EU members. Serbia is not so bad in this situation and will require a lot of money. In this first annual plan, there were 160 projects have been defined, which consisted 85 of roads, 44 of railways. Here again you see the economical function of this traffic network. Airports 16, inland waterways 7, and seaports 8, total 188. In general, it's, as already mentioned, 10 corridor 10, Trans-European network 10 corridor 5C, and 8. The main projects which are under construction at present are the 21 projects, which really, I have to say, on all this project it will be worked, but there is in everything there is a time delay. Total, we are talking about 1,432 kilometers to be constructed. This is something what is for us a good job. The construction market I don't want to talk. Coming to the executive summary. Ladies and gentlemen, being there now for 10 years in those countries, established everything, I have to tell you, Western Balkan countries' governments will be responsible of investments. In order to take advantage of the important investments to be done in this area, infrastructure needs a deep knowledge of the country leaders in general and their political economic background as a key element. If you don't know that, forget it, don't go to this country. You have to have the so-called local relations. Second one, you have to have well-educated local management. You have to have local competitors as your subcontractors. It is not to be seen that construction companies who operate in infrastructure can deal with building construction, smaller ones, 10 million, 20 million, or private financed. This is not the key what we can do. They have their local companies there, they know how to construct, and therefore you have to have a good knowledge of this local players there. Entrance strategy, yes. In order, out of our or my personal experience, it is advantageous if you start within traffic infrastructure. Then you learn everything, you learn how it runs, and due to the situation that these traffic infrastructure projects are solely financed by EU allocations or EBRD, EIB, you always can be sure you get the money. Yes, you can be sure. You are in a big tender situation, but you have always competitors, but you can be sure that the money you have taken there, you will get. Once the company is family, yes, then you are there. Concerning mixed finance structured investments, you know this miracle word PPP, public-private partnership, like with all the other things. I call them mixed finance structures. Yes, there is an amount of more than 6 billion euros in those countries, but ladies and gentlemen, forget at present this part of financing. It is due to the crisis in 2008, the ground is not well, let's say, profound to do something, but this is something what has to be done, and where the local government has no knowledge about this. Yes, European Union and international financial institutions will do their best. And the last point, which is very important, try to get into raw materials. You need raw materials if you are in infrastructure. And there is a lot of quarries that you should take over in order to be, let's say, competitive in those countries. I hope I gave you a short view of what's going on there. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hans-Jürgen Mirker. You gave a very concrete presentation with all the needs, how to enter the market, where you have to be careful, and what you have to watch. And I think I personally learned a lot, and so I think all the contributors here in the room will be also have learned. Now, my next speaker is Mr. Siegfried Wanker, who is a member of the board of Strabag Jena. You a competitor, a friendly competitor. A friendly competitor. Please show how friendly you are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Alpine is one of our competitors. It's a very professional and successful firm, so my high appreciation. Before I start with my slides, I would like to respond to what I heard from the two speakers before me. You will soon realize that due to the fact that my current core business is the concession, also called PPP business, that there are some different views, but I think that this makes it even more interesting. I very much appreciate the very professional, theoretical analysis of the current situation. My focus is a little bit more on live projects, and I would like to respond to a few things. The competition between international construction companies at present has three front lines, as I would say. One of it is surprisingly services. All of these international contractors want to grow into services, but which is not the issue of today. The second thing, my colleague is right, is raw materials. All contractors go into the investment of quarries and concrete mixing plants. And the third one, and at this point I deviate from my colleague, it is concessions. It is not so much the core market of Albania in South and Eastern, in Southern Europe, but in the rest of the world, concession business in transportation infrastructure is the key front line between major international players. Now, I refer to my colleague from Siemens. Yes, I can confirm that there is no link or no proven link between infrastructure investment and growth. You will see from what my slides show that it is surprisingly difficult for a major player like Strabag, who is in the concession and infrastructure business, to find evidence about this link, which explains that there is no scientific research behind it, and all the countries invest into this, but they are lazy in gathering evidence how helpful this is or not. When it comes to referring to the example with Japan, where most likely useless infrastructure investments have been taken, I just can say, when we, Strabag, are asked whether we know which infrastructure projects are useful or which are not useful, our statement is most of the time, we don't know. The reason is simple. Infrastructure projects which are from scratch visible that they are highly profitable are normally not tendered on the international market. So the local lobbying groups and the local power brokers are allocate this to the local players. And projects which are internationally tendered are normally doubtful whether they have a real macroeconomic background. Then I would like to refer to our approach to the political background which needs to be necessary for a successful rollout of infrastructure projects. There are two major decision-making criteria which we apply. First of all, there needs to be a major political commitment of all substantial political parties for an infrastructure rollout. This sounds trivial, but in most of the countries this is not in place. So we in detail investigate how the political landscape looks like before we give a country priority with regard to infrastructure development. Secondly, there has to be a long-term master plan for infrastructure rollout which is strictly executed. Most of the scandals in infrastructure development get back to a point where big infrastructure projects get to the market in an uncontrolled timeline. Only in case international contractors or international players know which projects are being tendered in the years of 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015 in one specific country. In that case, competition will develop and the taxpayer will get a high value deal. To my surprise, to the surprise of our competitors, there are not many countries who have a infrastructure master plan and who executed such master plan strictly. A very positive, a very strange example in this respect, in my view, is Slovenia. As mentioned, Slovenia has an infrastructure. Slovenia has an infrastructure holding company called DAS, but they have currently no clue what to do with it. Yeah? So Slovenia is a Western country, has all the political structures in place, but they have no political decision making about how to develop its infrastructure through DAS. Now let me go a little bit closer to concessions. We, Strabag, have lately won the tender for the Rotterdam access motorway. So even countries like the Netherlands, who have an infrastructure master plan, executed now, and they get highly competitive bids, which is not surprising because their master plan is in place since years. There is competition from French players, from Spanish players, from German players, or Austrian players, and competition is fierce, and the Dutch taxpayer makes excellent deals every day. With regard to Poland, the reason why one of the columns of my colleague was so high was mainly the A2 concession deal, which we won last year. It's the biggest infrastructure deal which has been closed in 2009. In the middle of the crisis, it's a 1.6 billion deal, and Strabag is proud to have won this deal, and is the sole contractor for this deal. Is 1.3 billion, the largest ever infrastructure contract signed by Strabag. Now let me go a little bit back into the past, because I can give you some, although not very scientific, insight into the economical impact of concession projects. I do not refer to what we do. As mentioned before, the infrastructure currently mainly takes place in transportation, and the transportation is such that we, Strabag, compete with the number one worldwide, with French contractor Vinci, and with number 3 is Bouygues, another French contractor, and as you can see here already, number 4 is a Chinese company. Number 5, Hochtief, still in this field, but they focus now mainly on airports, and they have withdrawn from transportation, from roads mainly. Now, the first project with regard to infrastructure is the concession N5 in Hungary. It comprises 3 sections. All of the 3 sections are in the meantime owned by Strabag. It is a 100-something motorway, section 1, section 2, section 3. We own 1 to 3, but we have built only 2 and 3. It's in the south, to the south from Strabag. It's a 50-year concession. As you can see here, that's this stretch, which is part of the corridor 10, we just mentioned. And on this map, and now we get to the point that is the question whether is there hard fact evidence that infrastructure projects create growth and wealth for the taxpayer. Here you see the progressive income tax per capita in 2002. This is during the period of, before the period where these motorways have been started to build. green areas are areas with high income tax, with high progressive income tax in